Welcome to the Couple-preneurs Show, helping couples in business develop structure and strategies that nurture the balance between business and home, bringing you interviews and insights to give you the secret sauce of power couples. Here are your hosts, Oscar and Kaya Frazier.
Entrepreneurs, couplepreneurs, people in business, folks thinking about getting into business, those that may be a little bit afraid to get started in business. If any of these things resonate with you, you are absolutely in the right place today. I'm super excited to introduce to all of you what I think is a very, very important topic for all entrepreneurs and couplepreneurs that have children that are looking to provide a more robust kind of learning schedule, if you will, for them. That's what this conversation is going to be around today. But before I do that, let me turn it over to Kai so she can walk through our sponsors.
All right. Our sponsors are Carolina Runners. They are a family-owned trucking company. Owner-operators out there that are looking for an authority, please check them out. You can find them at carolina-runners.com. We also have Talk Shirt to Me, shirts that speak and help you express your style. You can find them at talkshirttome.com. It sounds exactly it's spelled exactly how it sounds. Talkshirttome.com. Yeah. About to give me a hard time.
You finally messed a little bit of it up. You normally are so flawless.
Give me a hard time.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. All right. So before I introduce our guest, let me give a little bit of a backdrop about my experience with education and what I wish it was, right? So when I grew up in a very traditional school, K through 12 sort of scenario, then off to college and then grad school and all this other stuff. What I did not get was things around, entrepreneurship and how to handle emotional intelligence and all of the other factors that most people would need for something like this to be able to really be a great citizen beyond just education, right? So that deals with the physical, the mental, the cognitive, and the emotional development components. And so as Kaya and I have, provided business coaching and consulting for a number of small businesses, one of the conversations that tends to come up on a pretty regular basis is around how do I get my children to get into programs and to learning situations that they too will have other options beyond just your normal kind of K through 12 curricula. Mm-hmm. Kaya, did you have anything with that, or kind of your same observation?
Same observation. I'm ready to kind of dive down into the subjects. I have some questions, but we got to get rocking and rolling before I start throwing out the questions.
So basically, you're trying to rush me along.
No, I'm not rushing you along. I'm not rushing you.
Okay, yes. All right. So we had, and as a matter of fact, before I dive into that, there was a young lady in Charlotte that had us do a guest speaking engagement. Gosh, this was probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was at a Montessori school.
Yeah.
And I remember being blown away because I had never actually spoken to a Montessori school before. And so as I was sitting there and we were watching the crowd and watching the students, like I was expecting to walk into a room and see all of the kids, sitting in file line and learning from one teacher. But what I saw and I observed was this large room where some of the kids were on laptops, some were on iPads, some were just, writing, some were on their cell phone. But all in all, they all were still learning various elements that taught them ways to learn based upon what's best for them.
Right.
And so with that said, I think the entrepreneur listenership that we have is going to really appreciate this.
Yes.
So without further ado, let me introduce to all of you, Mrs. Charity Muhammad. Charity, how are you doing?
Heaven's high greetings. I'm doing just fine. How are you guys doing?
Excellent, excellent. So as an early childhood educator and founder of the Planting Pure Seeds Academy Online, if you can, walk us through kind of who you are, how you got started into early childhood education, and then what led you into founding the company that you own today.
Okay, well, like I said, my first name is Charity. I'm originally from Louisiana. My grandparents raised me. For lack of better terminology, they're my parents. So whenever you hear me speak of my parents, I'm really talking about my grandparents. They are 82 and 92 this year. And he has been a minister for the past 40 years. So, I had a very strict upbringing, very old school, literally an old school upbringing. I actually started reading when I was 3 years old, and I also attended a Head Start program there in my hometown. And my mom actually said the main thing she told me about reading, she said that once I saw a word, it was always going to be that same word. And that kind of resonated with me. And I also have a brother that's 2.5 years older than me. And I think I was really trying to keep up with him. And that we were, fully immersed in that church lifestyle. We were there every time the doors opened, basically. We had church at home. We had church at different people's houses. We had that visiting, traveling church. Like if you were too sick to come, we would come to your house and have service with you type thing. We had Bible class like 3 times a week, service 3 or 4 times a day. So I was constantly surrounded by, literature. My mom, she bought books all the time. There was no such thing as, the internet and Google and stuff. We had 3 different sets of encyclopedias. We had the Bible encyclopedia. And basically, since I was blessed to start reading at 3, my mom told me, she said, well, just like God gave you that knowledge, he could take it away from you if you don't use it for his glory. So she said her philosophy was if you make A's in school, you have to make A's in the Bible too. But long story short, like I said, I started reading at 3. It was like a big deal if we're in Bible class and we're studying about the Old Testament. Your 3-year-old, child can, pronounce all these different, words and pronunciations that, are in the Old Testament. If you are, if you know anything about the Bible, those are some challenging words in the Old Testament to read. And for me to be a 3-year-old, sitting there reading those words, everybody was just kind of in awe of that. So, of course, I was a Sunday school teacher as well. Then, as the years progressed, I had a love of learning. I always had a love of learning. Like I said, she surrounded me with books and literature. She encouraged me to ask, questions. She never, even though it was an old school upbringing, it was basically do as I say. And I would do it first, but then I was able to come back to her and always ask her, the biggest thing was always, for me, was why. Like, why was I doing certain things? So she allowed me that liberty and that freedom to be able to always ask her why. Normally it was after I did it, with her being, an old school parent, they don't believe in a whole lot of questions before you do something. They want you to do it first. Do it first, but like I said, me and her kind of it was like a mutual respect type thing. And I am 37 and I still to this day, we have that same, respect because she, like I said, she always allowed me that freedom to come to her and ask questions. And her biggest thing was if she didn't know, she would tell me to go find it. So hence, that's why she bought every encyclopedia she could find for us. They used to have traveling salesmen back in the day. And I know I'm making myself sound dated, but they used to have traveling salesmen. They would come to your house and knock on your door with these encyclopedia sets and, different type of learning books, sets for your children and different things. What were you saying?
I was saying we definitely remember those.
Yeah, so we had every set that they saw. We had them. We had the Bible set. And then, like I said, she bought that, and like if she didn't know something, if she didn't know, I would go get a book off the shelf, and 9 times out of 10, I could find the answer, in one of those books. And then just imagine when the internet did come. I'm gonna say when the internet came out, basically when we were introduced to the internet. Just imagine I was in like shock and amazement. I could just actually, instead of me having to go find a book, to go find something, I literally could just type it in. But like I'll say, back to my background, I was in a small town, 6,000 people. When I was in high school, I started working in the library, so I really had a whole lot of access to a lot of information. And my dream was to be I was going to teach kindergarten in the daytime, and then I was going to be a pediatrician or a pediatric nurse at night. That was my goal when I was, when I was in school. And I was that child in school, like I said, because she encouraged me to ask questions. I was a very fast learner. I figured out what type of learning style I had, and I do feel like I had some symptoms of it's called ADHD and ADD nowadays, but it told me I was always busy. I always wanted something to do. I finished my work really fast. I would just sit there bored. And so I talked a lot. I ended up talking a lot, and I ended up getting in trouble for talking to my friends a lot because, they didn't have enough busy work for me to do. And it was almost like a challenge for me. Okay. And, every time I went from class to class, and we had the, it was more like a class system where you had A group, B group, C group, and then they didn't call it D group, but, it was the group of students that were not in A, B, or C group. They were in a group too. And we were all in the same classes all the way up until high school. Then when we get to high school, they called it accelerated classes. So we were basically together from kindergarten all the way till we graduated. All of us were in A group. It just went from A group to accelerated classes when we got to high school. But even with me taking those accelerated classes and, they tested me for being gifted and talented and all those different things, I was always, quote unquote, bored in my classes because if I had a textbook and it had 25 chapters in it, we may cover one chapter in a week, but if we were on chapter 5 in class, I had already read the whole book. So I read ahead. I already knew everything that was in the chapter. So I could sit there and talk to my friend while the teacher was up there teaching. And you know how we would go in order, when you read the paragraph by paragraph.
Yep.
And, they would call on each student, right? And you knew who was next. You knew when it was your turn. You knew, okay, well, she's on page 5 and that person's on paragraph 1. That means I'm going to be reading paragraph 10, right? So I would just time it. I would time it perfectly. I knew what my paragraph was going to be. I already knew all the answers. I had already answered them all. So I could talk to my friend. And then when it was my turn, I was ready to read. And you know how sometimes the teacher would try to fool you and say, okay, well, I'm going to go out of turn to make sure this person's paying attention. They never could. Like, that didn't work on me either because I had already read the whole book and I was such a fast reader, till I'm listening to you with one ear and talking to my friend with the other ear. And like I said, I don't know if it was because my teachers, I don't know if they didn't know how to teach me, or I don't want to say they didn't care because, I don't want to say they didn't care because I had a lot of, caring teachers and a lot of teachers who tried their best, to help, every student, but they didn't really know how to reach me or really keep me engaged. The only thing that kept me, making good grades was my parents, really, because I didn't want to be embarrassed, by her, coming up there and discipline me because, that was allowed back then as well.
Right. Yeah, I remember those. I remember those kind of times. In fact, I think there's a lot of students that sometimes get misconstrued as having ADHD or having some kind of ability when really they're just advanced and they're bored. I totally want to hear more about how you started getting into the Montessori style and how you're starting to build on the early childhood education side. That's exactly what a lot of parents are talking about these days. That their kids are misdiagnosed.
Right.
Yeah. And even with that being said, my mom had her own method of discipline. And there was no medication involved at all, so, I know there's a whole debate when it comes to that, as far as, the diagnosis and the medication side of things.
Right.
And so just fast forwarding with my background, I have a background with being that student that was misunderstood and, misdiagnosed. And then I also have a background in daycare. I've owned the daycare. I've supervised at a daycare. I have a background in Head Start. I wanted to teach Head Start because my mom said Head Start helped me to blossom and grow as as an early student, I got a very good foundation. I have a background in middle school. I have a background in elementary, and I've taught on the public side and on the private side. So I've seen, both sides of, I've seen the pros and I've seen the cons. And I've always wanted to be an educator because, like I said, I understand, that child. I understand that child, like I said, that was misunderstood, misdiagnosed. It was just bored all the time. I understand that child. And then I understand that child that's just, not being challenged. You have some children, they just kind of float through the system. They kind of just, they're just right there under the radar.
Yep.
Then you also have that, it's just a lot of things I learned when I was going to school. When I really, also, there's another factor too. You can have a child that is very intelligent in a lot of subjects, but then they could be struggling in one subject. I was that child too, because although I excelled in anything that was like literacy related, I struggled when it came to math because I didn't, and I figured that out when I got to college. So I basically suffered.
Opposite of that. Yeah, like I accelerated in math and all sorts of statistics, but on the other side, it was like I didn't necessarily struggle, but it was definitely a much more of a challenge, like history and things like that. I wasn't good at that stuff at all. You know what I mean? I hear you.
I was the exact opposite of that. So I loved history. I loved science. I was okay with math. But like when it got to classes where I had to do like a lot of reading and stuff like that, I tended to lose focus because, I read a different way than everybody else did. The way that I saw the content and retained the content was different as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, for so many years, schools have been setting this one standard, this one way of teaching such a wide variety and a diverse group of people, and then kind of singling out people that didn't fall into that line. So I'm interested to know how Planting Pure Seeds Academy, what is the structure of that? What are you providing with your company that kind of eliminates that issue?
Okay, so down to that, I like I said, one of the things that I kind of fell in love with when I was studying, and then like I said, I consider us all to be lifelong learners, and I feel like every moment, is a possible teaching moment.
Right.
So I kind of fell in love with the Montessori Style approach, and it's a self-paced, and you are basically just a guide. You're on a journey with your students, and you're just their guide. It's almost like when you go on a tour, or if you've ever been to a zoo or a museum, or if you ever been on a trip and you had a travel guide, it's basically I'm just along for the ride, basically, and I'm just making sure that we don't make a wrong turn or get off on the wrong exit. Basically, that's all I'm doing. They're in the driver's seat and I'm in the passenger seat.
I love that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've never heard it explained like that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, see, I'm just the person that has the knowledge. I have the knowledge. I have the the experience. I have the experience that they don't have. I'll say, because they have knowledge and experience too. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that children they're just little people. They're just smaller versions of us, and they have the same emotions we have, the same thought process that we have. And we are in charge of, shaping and molding their foundation, to make sure that they can be, productive members of society. But we cannot set the standard for them, I don't feel. We can have standards in place. We can have like basics, basically. Like I said, if I'm talking about the whole child, physical, mental, cognitive, and emotional development, and spiritual, I always throw spiritual in there too. And that's one of the things I like about being on the private side. Is I can throw spiritual in there too, because we're on the private side of things. We can talk about the whole entire child. And I'm just basically making sure that they have a good, strong foundation in all those areas. And I understand that everybody learns differently. So, I'm not going to single a child out. There's not going to be just one way to do anything. There's never just one way to do anything. And as long as we all arrive at the same destination, you know, you can take a boat, you can take a plane, you can take a car. Some people might want to walk, you know, and it's up to me to basically, I will screen the child, and the child won't even know we're doing a screening. We do activities, you know, we do a lot of online things. And I'm a firm believer in using technology for what it's for. So I'm not against screen time, but I want it to be productive screen time, you know. And I feel like you can overdo anything. You know, you can let them be outside too long. You know, you can let them be in front of a TV too long. But I just feel like every moment is a teachable moment. Every moment needs to be productive. And like I said, the Montessori style is basically, like I said, you want the whole child to learn on every level, all those different levels I named: physical, mental, cognitive, and emotional. And it's more activity-based, and it's more student-led. Like you spoke of earlier, like everybody's not doing the same thing at the same time. If we do like a whole group instruction, it's maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the most, because you have to keep in mind their mental, you know, capacity, their emotional capacity. And then every child brings along, you know, just like I have experiences from my childhood, every child, no matter how old they are, they're bringing a whole lot of experiences. You know, we would call it baggage, but they're bringing a lot of experiences to the table. There's a lot of things that they already know. So you can just kind of build on what they already know. You know, you don't have to just start from scratch. You can build on what they already know, mold what they already know. And if you instill, you know, like a need or a want in them to want to know more and to want to do better, they're going to continue to keep climbing. Like, you have to hold your standard like right above, you know, almost like you're dangling it there, and you have to just kind of keep it barely out of their reach, because struggle can be a good thing. Struggle can be a positive thing. You just don't want them to struggle too much and, you know, get overwhelmed, and then they'll shut down.
Absolutely.
But so a little struggle room in there to make them want to keep doing it.
I think this is outstanding because, you know, as entrepreneurs, me and Oscar have had a lot of discussions about, you know, how we want to school our children. We don't have children yet, but we're heading in that direction. So we've been talking about what kind of path we would like to take for our children. And we kind of have both landed on the traditional, you know, sitting in a classroom style of learning might not be the right path for us. So I think that there are so many parents out there that are entrepreneurs that have, you know, widened their horizons, I would say, on how you learn and how you can teach a child at this point. And they're looking for alternative methods. So I think the timing on this is absolutely perfect.
It absolutely is. Charity, as far as your curriculum, is it already set to where if a child does go through the, you know, K through 12, or I see that you've got like, you know, 6 through 12 options, etc., will they be able to also, like, is this directly transferable into like credits and stuff so they can still, you know, I guess, you know, go to college with the same, you know, information, or is it something where you can still get additional training?
Yes. They will be able to, because little do we know, or little do a lot of people know. Like I said, I offer the homeschooling option as well. You know, so there's a whole lot of different terminology, you know, we can get into when it comes to homeschooling. But yes, everything will be fully transferable. They'll be able to go to schools. They'll be able to do whatever they want to do, you know, once they complete the program.
Yeah, I think after folks listen to this, you're going to get a lot of phone calls, because there's always entrepreneurs that are looking to get your kids into programs that's more designed for how you actually work in a ownership capacity, right, where you're having to do a little bit of everything in different capacities, as opposed to this rigorous, rigid sort of like sit in the classroom. Because to me, Oscar's opinion, I've always felt that a traditional classroom teaches you how to be an employee, you know, as opposed to how to be like a thought-provoking, self-thought type of citizen,
and
right?
just look at solve problems differently, right? And diversely as well.
How can people get in contact with you or learn more about your academy if they want to?
Okay, so you can visit my website, which is constantly under construction, because like I mentioned earlier, we're all lifelong learners, and as I learn things and research things, I'm constantly, adding to my program. It's constantly developing. It's constantly being added to, as more parents come in, and I find out what their needs are and what their students' needs are. But my website is plantingpureseedsacademy.com. That's planting, planting pureseeds academy, academy.com. And then you can also call. My number is 205-547-0823, and you'll get me. Like I said, I am an entrepreneur, so you'll get me if you call, or you can leave a message and I return your call, or you can send me a message. And my email is plantingseedspreschoolonline@gmail.com. plantingseedspreschoolonline@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. You just type in Planting Pure Seeds Academy online, and you'll find me on Facebook and on Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. I also wanted to talk a little bit, kind of keep everybody in mind of multiple intelligences before we go. Like I said, I was that child, like I said, where they kind of misunderstood me because I did so well in all the other subjects, but then by the time I hit third grade, everything was so easy to me, till, like I said, I just floated through everything, and I had all this free time on my hands. Then I get to third grade, and they started throwing timetables at me. Timetables were a breeze. But then they started introducing us to algebra, so now they're mixing letters and numbers together. So I was like, okay, y'all are confusing me now. I'm a visual learner, and I'm kinesthetic. That means I learn better when it's hands-on, when I'm doing something, when I'm up and moving around. I am not an auditory learner. I don't learn best just by hearing you. I learn best when I see you do it and when you let me do it. Okay. Then I also learned about multiple intelligences. There's about 8 or 9 different intelligences. You have logical, visual, musical, kinesthetic, interpersonal, naturalistic, linguistic. Some people learn better when they see it. That's visual. Like I said, some people learn better when they're doing it, up and moving around. That's kinesthetic. Some people are musical. They learn better when it's set to music or they can hear it in a song. I know that it's not just one way to do anything. So I have, several different screenings that I do with my students, and I figure out, what kind of learner they are. What do they like to do? What do they know? What do they not know? And we figure out, where their strengths are, where their, I hate to say weaknesses, but so I like to say where they need support and where they don't need support. Because if you don't need support in something, you can fly through that and you can keep going. But where you do need support, that's where I come in. And with the pandemic, with everything going to be virtual, that was a struggle for a lot of parents. So I am able to help you because I'm virtual. You can plug into me at your schedule, at your convenience. And then they're also able to interact with each other as well because, we have technology. You have cell phones, you have notepads, iPads, we have laptops, we have desktops, that's for the visual students. And then we do hands-on activities too, and then I send supply kits in the mail to the parents. They don't have to purchase anything. They don't have to make any copies. All that's done for them is very convenient. They just make sure they get signed in, and then they can do whatever needs to be done,
And Charity, it's clear that this is something that is very passionate for you, and I know that it's going to resonate really well with people as they listen to this. Again, Charity, we really appreciate you coming on to the show today. What we'll do is we'll make sure we put all of your links and ways for people to get in contact with you and for them to visit your website inside of the show notes. And we'll probably be back on the show again soon to talk more about like these kind of topics. Yes. I think it's right on time.
Our timing is limited, but I think that there's still so much to dive into and pull out of this conversation that our listeners would be looking forward to. So
cannot wait to talk to you.
You have to come back and visit us again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Couple-preneurs Show. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.kothoughtleaders.com.